Well, here we are, Kene, sitting at my kitchen table, and you're probably at your office or kitchen table because we're in COVID-19. But for everyone watching, I am with my friend Kene Ilochonwu, who is excitedly the first Black bencher ever to be elected as part of the Law Society of Alberta. And I've known Kene now for a couple of years. Our circles have crossed through various means, including we helped over here at Pekarski and Co. place you at Parkland Corporation, where you are now as legal counsel. And I'm
Sure.
sure our paths have crossed in other forms as well, as I'm also a recovering lawyer and you're part of the legal community here. But really, I wanted to chat a little bit more about your career history and just your transition from being a lawyer in Nigeria to a lawyer in Canada, and now, again, the first ever Black bencher to the Law Society of Alberta, which is very exciting. So thank you, Kenny, for taking the time to chat with me.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks for having me. It's always good to see you.
Absolutely. And I'm sad we can't do our normal coffee chat, but such is
I
life
hear
during
you.
this pandemic.
Yeah, damn COVID.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess to get things started off, I'm wondering if you can, just taking us back to Nigeria, tell us a little bit about, I mean, what it's like to become licensed as a lawyer in Nigeria and what that process is like, because a lot of people listening probably have very little idea about what it takes to become a lawyer in Nigeria and even what the practice of law is like that. And that's where you started. So I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thanks. So I would compare it to the Canadian system, so
Mhm.
it gives the context. I always tell people when you talk of law school, in Nigeria, we don't call it law school, it's your degree. We have a law school that is like articles here. Okay. So anyway, I had my undergraduate at the Abia State University,
Mhm.
and I got called. I finished my undergraduate in 1997 at Abia State University. So in Nigeria, we don't do a first degree; you do your law degree, and the law degree is a 5-year program.
Got
Here
it.
is 3. Yeah. So you do 5 years in university, then you go to law school and do an additional 1 year before you get called to the bar. And law school is a school in itself. And during the 12 months of law school, you do what they call court attachment, where you go sit in the court and see how judges deliver judgments and how lawyers present their cases. Then you also do a 1 month chambers attachment, where you go sit in a law firm and
Mm.
understand the basics. So it's kind of articles here, but you are actually in a school learning the procedural law, not you're not doing it in a law firm like here in a court.
Right.
So that's it. So I did my law school and then got called to the bar in Nigeria in 2000.
Mhm.
And I worked a bit in Nigeria. And at the time in Nigeria, I always like to say this, at the time, mobile phones had just been rolled out, or what they call GSM on the African continent.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to go to University of Strathclyde to study IT and telecoms law. And I felt once I get that, I'll be one of the few telecoms lawyers and I'm just going to make a killing and everything. But a man proposes, God disposes. So I went to Strathclyde, did my master's in IT and telecoms law, and came back to Nigeria, but it wasn't as I thought it would be. But at the time I had gotten married, so I went back to Scotland, and then from Scotland moved over to Canada um, in 2007.
So
Okay.
you were in Nigeria, got called to the Nigerian bar for lack of, that's probably not what it's called, but the
Yeah,
equivalent.
that's
That's
what
what
it's
it's
called.
called?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. So you got called in 2000, worked a little bit, did your LLM at the University of Strathclyde. What made you want to come to Canada?
Well, I had a friend here.
Mhm.
He had visited him twice while I was in the UK,
Mhm.
and he said, "Hey, Canada is such a booming economy. whatever you want to do in Nigeria, you can do 10 times that in Canada. Whatever you want to do in the UK, there is so much. I mean, UK had about 60 million people. Canada
Mhm.
had about 33 million. There's much more you can do here. Like, it's Canada is like a blank canvas where you can just do whatever you want to do. I mean, he really sold it to me. And then having visited here twice, being a common law jurisdiction, it was much easier to settle here. I remember I was in Scotland, not even in England, and
Mhm.
Scotland is a civil law jurisdiction. So for me to get called to the bar there, I had to go back and do my degree all over again. I never really stayed in England, so I didn't even think about that.
Mhm.
But while I was there, I did a bit of immigration and employment law,
Mhm.
which you could do as a consultant, but not as a lawyer. So, I mean, that got sold to me, and I applied as a permanent resident, and I got it. So I moved here in 2007.
Mhm. And was your
Yeah.
intention to take this burgeoning legal career you had developed in Nigeria and complemented with experience in Scotland and just kind of jump into practicing law in Canada? Was that the original plan?
That was the original plan, yeah, because once a lawyer, you always want to settle back into law regardless of, and like my friend said, this is a blank canvas for me to do whatever I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So I said, let me come in and then I'll decide where fate will take me once I
Mhm.
get in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came in 2007 and I applied for the NCA, which I think I even did before I got in here or after I
Yeah.
had landed and gone back to Scotland.
Just to explain for those who don't know, the NCA process is the National Committee on Accreditation, which is the body that assesses your education and legal experience before you come to Canada to decide what mind-boggling number of exams you have to take before you have the privilege of articling here and then continuing your
Precisely.
practice. That's the background. So you
Yes.
how much familiarity did you have with the NCA process before you came?
I mean, I had done my research. So I didn't know how many exams because I didn't know any lawyers coming in here.
Hmm.
I did my research. And back then, so this was 2007, there was no rhyme or reason for the NCA assessments. You just applied and you held your breath. Okay.
That's always
So,
comforting.
yeah, right? So, I
Mhm.
mean, now it's a little more, there's a little more certainty.
Mm.
So I applied, I got 7 exams to do.
Ooh,
I remember being given tax law. I'd never done tax in my life. And then I had evidence, trust, and I had 7 exams anyway. I looked
mhm.
at this, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I said, okay, this is gonna take a while. So I put it aside and I said I applied for jobs and I was fortunate enough I got employed by Canadian Natural Resources in Fort McMurray as a contract specialist.
Wow.
And looking at the job description, because I've done a bit of contracting while in Nigeria, and I knew about contracts. Most lawyers know about contracts. So
Mhm.
I applied, and with that experience, I got hired on. So I had a young family who I had to look after. I had 7 exams to do, and I had a new job in Fort McMurray, and I was in Calgary, so I had to move to Fort Mac.
Wow, that one
So,
must have been
so
an experience. I've
oh
personally
yeah,
never even been to Fort Mac, but
oh really? Oh.
the transition from Scotland to Fort Mac, what was that like?
Well, just Scotland to Calgary. I was in Calgary from July to
Mhm.
November when I moved to
Okay.
Scotland to Fort McMurray. So I like to tell people like Scotland is maybe 5 degrees,
Hmm.
Calgary maybe -10, Fort Mac
On a
by
bad day.
time yeah on a bad day. I mean this was still in November anyway. So then when I went to Fort Mac, then I now got into minus. I mean, having lived there for 3 years, there was a time it was -45. But
Oh
I
my
am
gosh.
thankful because it was a gradual transition. Imagine if I came straight from Nigeria and went into Scotland, I would have just frozen to death or something. So it was a gradual transition for me, and
Got it.
I'm thankful for that.
Hmm.
So yes, I got into Fort Mac in November 2007. I started working as a contract specialist, and I took my time with the NCAs. And back then, I don't know if it's still the same now, your assessments will lapse after 2 years and you have to apply again.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was 2007 to 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had written and passed about 3 exams. I remember trust, evidence, and constitutional. So in 2010, I got a job with Suncor Energy,
Yep.
and they moved me to Calgary. So
So,
from September 2010, I was back in Calgary with Suncor,
mm-hmm.
and I reapplied for the NCE. I mean, now I was in the biggest city. The law thing was still niggling, even though
Mm-hmm.
I was doing well in supply chain, but it was
Right.
still like. So I applied for an assessment. This time, common law lawyers had to do only 4 exams.
So you had
Constitutional,
already written a number and then they told you you wrote more than you needed to.
well, yeah. So the trust wasn't necessary, evidence wasn't necessary. Only constitutional was part of the four.
Mm,
So I now had only 3 exams to do. So foundations, admin law, and criminal law.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the evidence and trust. Well, I'm thankful I didn't have to write tax. I
Yeah.
can't even remember which other exam it was. I had made it 7, but it was just such a nightmare. Maybe I purposely forgot that chapter in my history. So I
Yeah.
got 3 exams, and by then I had 2 kids in Fort Mac. So again, family life. I took my time, and I was doing really well, thank God, in supply chain. I
Mm-hmm.
was a manager then in Suncom, and
Mm-hmm.
law kind of took a back seat.
Yeah.
Mm,
Because you
But doing
were
it,
became in a leadership role in supply chain, right? Like
yes,
progressing through the ranks in Suncor.
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Is there a part of you that
So
thought, I'm just gonna forget this whole crazy law hoop jumping career and just be in supply chain?
yes, a huge part of me said that. A huge part of me thought having to go start law all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I was earning 6 figures already, and I go, at the clinic students had to earn 5 figures. Could I do that? You know, talking to myself and everything. However, the passionate part of me thought, you crossed the Atlantic Ocean to come to this country. You didn't come here to be a supply chain person. You came here to continue your profession.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you've done the NCAs, and this was in 2011 or 12. You've done the NCAs. Why did you even start doing the NCAs if you didn't want to finish
Mm-hmm.
this journey? So there was that part of me that kept trying to drive me, like, you need to do this, you need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a mentor in Suncor who, I was talking to, was like, look, you're doing so well in supply chain. Why don't you just stay in supply chain? I said, okay, check this out. I'm an immigrant. If anything goes wrong in my career, unlike you, my mentor, you could always go back to your father's house and live in the basement. I don't have that option. I am that father. I
Mm,
can't, it, me being in this country, it has to work. I
yeah.
don't have any option. There's nowhere else for me to go but here. Maybe it's a good thing. So I had to pick myself up by my bootstraps and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on one career or having just one career is dangerous.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah. And we've
Where I come
certainly,
from.
yeah, we've seen so much volatility, obviously, in the oil and gas
Yeah.
industry and different
Yeah.
sectors. So
And and
you
and
were
this was in
wise.
2012. I was saying
Mm-hmm.
this, not even knowing what was coming. So I said, I can't have just one source of income because you never know where things might go wrong. I mean, there's a proverb we have in my language, I'm Igbo,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't stand in one place and watch a festival. You walk around, you do many things. So you don't just have one source of income.
Mm-hmm.
But I would still like to be a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. I have to
But
say, your perseverance and your stick-to-itness like kind of reminds me of like the Alberta prairie ethos, and I think a
yeah,
lot of people would relate to that, and it's just so impressive to see someone so
mm,
determined in their career. But
yeah,
sorry,
thank you.
continue.
Yeah, so like I said, I was doing so well, and in 6 figures doing, and then nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Then, fortunately, 3 years later in 2015, I got laid off. from
Fortunately, you
Sunco.
say.
Yes, in
Okay.
hindsight, it's
It was a
fortunate.
it was a blessing in disguise.
Yes, at
Mhm.
the time, it was. I didn't think it was fortune, but now,
Mhm.
so I got laid off. So I didn't have a career anymore. I didn't have that six figure income that made my head swell and stuff. So I'm like, well, now what I was thinking then that I needed is another source of income. It's come to me right now, So I said, okay, that's it. I need to now do something about this. So started networking, and I was blessed. I was fortunate. I met one of my mentors who works in Imperial.
Mhm.
The Imperial and DLA Piper had a program, a composite curriculum program, where you did 6 months in DLA and 6 months in Imperial. And
Mhm.
I was fortunate enough. I got interviewed, and I got taken into the program.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
purely
and
by networking then. Just you networked with the right people and you got connected into
I
this articling composite program. And if
I
I'm not mistaken, it was designed for internationally trained lawyers,
it's,
correct?
it's it's
Mm-hmm.
strictly for internationally trained lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And a few people had done it already, so I wasn't the first.
Okay.
Interestingly, I had interviewed for that in 2013 or 14, but I didn't get in because my interviewer said, "Well, you already have a job in Suncorp back then, so you really don't need this program. You're doing well as you are." But
Mm.
I mean, how could I fault them? There were lots of um, internationally trained lawyers that weren't working and needed that more than I did. But anyway, my turn came. I networked a lot, and I was fortunate enough because some people network and they don't get this
Mm-hmm.
lucky. I was fortunate enough to meet the right people. I got interviewed and I got taken into the program. So I started my articles in May 2016
Mm-hmm.
and up until June the following year, 2000. Sorry, up until May
Mm-hmm.
2017.
And how
So
did it feel to be finally called to the bar in Alberta after so many years, going through this process?
yeah, so I was called to the bar the first time in Nigeria in 2000,
Mm-hmm.
and then again in Alberta in 2017. And my mom was there. So I had
Oh,
actually gone to Nigeria, and I came back with my mom a week before my bar call. And for me, I don't know. I tried to take it in my stride, but my mom she was at my first bar call in 2000.
mm-hmm.
And then she was there again for my second one. And the sense of pride, she kept telling my siblings that, wow, the court was filled up with his colleagues, with lawyers everywhere. Like, I've never seen so many lawyers in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should be proud of this as well, but I was trying to take it in my stride.
You're
Um,
too humble, Kenny. And yeah, for those who don't know, when you get called to the bar in Alberta, well, before the pandemic at least, you actually had your own ceremony in court and they did like a roast of you. Your principal
yes.
did that and all your friends and family came to join. So that's amazing that you got to have your mom and have that celebration of something, a process that probably many other lawyers frankly take for granted.
Yeah, actually. And I did my bar call at the Court of Appeal.
Hmm.
It's
Wow.
Justice Straker, so it's all white, unlike the Queen's Bench, which is more brown, and it was filled up because lawyers from DLA Piper were there, lawyers from Imperial were there,
Wow.
and a few of my friends from Blake's and Norton Rose Fulbright who did some sort of articles at Imperial, so I
Mm,
got to meet them. So the courtroom was filled. Like they had to bring chairs from the other courtrooms to seat people. So it
wow.
was it was really amazing. And the day of my bar call, I got an offer letter with Blake Castles and Graydon. So right after the bar
Wow.
call, somebody walks up to me and gives me an envelope. I thought I was being sued. Yes. Because I'm like, okay, who's this person and why am I being. So I just put the envelope on my mind. I was still saying hello to the guests and everything. And then somebody was like, why don't you open the envelope? I think somebody knew. Like, okay, wow. what is it gonna be? It came from a lawyer, so it's not anything good. So I finally opened the envelope, and there was an offer letter as an
And
associate at
and
Blake's.
had you applied to Blake's, or is this
Yes,
totally you had applied? Okay.
I had interviewed with them the day before, the
Okay.
day before my bar call. So I don't know how I got an offer
Hmm.
letter printed out in 24 hours, and they even knew I
Wow.
was at a bar call, and they got someone because later I met he was a summer student back then. He said he sat through my bar call and then waited till it finished, and then he served me, so to speak.
So his
So,
his summer student job at Blake's was to present your offer to you at your bar call.
exactly.
Wow.
So it was
That's
really
amazing.
it was an experience, and
And for those who, because so many people struggle to make that transition of, internationally trained lawyers, they finish their articles and they're often not guaranteed hire back after. How did you line up those interviews with Blake's for the benefit of those who are struggling to find a role after articles as well?
you know what? It's it's nothing I did, Erin.
Mm,
It's I was blessed. I was lucky. I knew people that believed I did a good job and they worked on my behalf. It wasn't anything I did. I wouldn't say I went around submitting resumes and stuff. It was all about the networks I
mm-hmm,
developed and the supposedly the good job that I did, because the good job I did at DLA Pepper and at Blake's,
mm-hmm.
when I went to people to say, please, can you help me find a position after articles, people went to bat for me.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
I think you're probably too humble because, doing good work is a marketing thing in a sense. So if you do good work in articles and you get noticed by lawyers, they'll tell other lawyers. And we
yeah,
both know, for better or for worse, lawyers in Calgary and Alberta and even across Canada, they love to talk to each other. It's a very
yeah,
close-knit network. So
yeah,
that positive referral is so important. And just the power of the network that you seem to have built here in Calgary. So yeah, no, that's an amazing story,
yeah,
just to inspire other people who might be looking for roles after articles, especially this year in COVID.
yeah. And I tell people, look, the legal profession is all about networking.
Hmm.
Whether you are a summer student, you have to network with associates to get work to do.
Hmm.
Whether you're articling or you're a junior associate, you have to network with senior associates to get work, because it's all about billable hours.
Hmm.
When you're a senior associate, you have to network with the partners to give you work when they get the work. When you're a partner, you have to network with clients to bring work into the firm. So I tell people, look, the legal profession is a hustle. You cannot sit in one place and think you would make it.
Hmm.
So, because I hustled, I mean, I say it in very few words, but I hustled. I went for every event where I could meet lawyers. I reached out to as many lawyers as I could, and which also helped me during my campaign anyway. Reached
Hmm.
out to as many lawyers, always left a good impression.
Hmm.
Always made sure I left a good impression. And when the work came, always made sure I did a good job. Because even if you're good at networking and you're not doing a good job, who's going to refer you, right?
Hmm.
So that's what I always tell people. Sometimes, as an internationally trained lawyer, you only have one chance to impress a senior associate or a partner. You go ahead networking, meeting people, and then when they give you the job, better do it right, or else no one is going to give you the work to do anymore. So it's a lot of there's it's a lot of it sounds very stressful, but you take it in your stride. Like I said, we didn't come into this country, we didn't cross the Atlantic Ocean to come here and twiddle our thumbs. We worked hard where we came from, and as lawyers already where we came from, we're already a hard worker. So you can't come here and not be a hard worker. You just have to continue doing what you are doing. The culture might be different with the networking and everything, but hey, we're in Canada now. We just need to pick it up and continue the hustle.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm hearing this hustle, this drive, like this entrepreneurial spirit, and Yeah, personally, I would like to say I think on behalf of Canada, we are very lucky to have you and that sort of energy in our country. So yeah,
Thank you.
it's very cool to hear. And so obviously you were at Blake's and you worked a couple of years and you must have bumped into a friendly neighborhood recruiter who was recruiting on behalf of Parkland.
Yes, I did. So I was actually 1 year at Blake's,
Hmm.
or more or less 11 months. But I also say this. So I worked as a supply chain professional,
Hmm.
and I didn't let that experience go by me.
Mm.
So I used that experience when I interviewed for positions. And I tell people whether you served tea or whether you were a janitor, whatever you did, it's a life experience. You never know where that experience would take you or how it would impact someone that is interviewing you, and it would be a selling pitch
Mm.
for your skills, for your soft skills, for whatever it is. So I tell people, do a good job, even if it's not in the legal field. Do a good job because that good job would sell you later in life. And so, luckily, with the supply chain experience, when I met my favorite neighborhood recruiter, my friendly neighborhood recruiter, I had to sell myself with the skill that I had. Because being just a first year lawyer, most first year lawyers will be deemed not to know much about file intake, client management, and all that stuff. But so, having worked in supply chain and worked with lawyers, having been an internationally trained lawyer, it was a selling point.
Yeah.
I used those experiences and convinced my friendly neighborhood recruiter to give me a shot, you know.
Hmm.
And then, so that friendly neighborhood recruiter believed in me, sent a very passionate email about my skills and experiences to Parkland. And I got a chance to speak to the folks at Parkland. And I was blessed, I was lucky. I got selected for the role. Yeah. And,
And beat out a bunch of other people for the role. Just being humble over there, but no, it was really interesting, and obviously I have the benefit of knowing your background a little bit from that recruitment experience. But yeah, I'm curious how it felt because you were this 2000. You were called in the year 2000 in Nigeria. You had been a supply chain manager. You had led a team in this supply chain field for one of the best oil and gas companies in Canada. Like in a sense, you probably were made to feel like you almost had to restart your career to become a lawyer here in Canada. Like, what was that like for you?
well, I say this way. In Canada, I'm a third year lawyer. I don't try to let it get into my head that I'm 20 years at the bar. I am a third year lawyer in Canada. Um, if I'm in Nigeria, then I'll raise my head and say, don't talk to me, I'm a 20-year lawyer. But for Canada, I'm a third year lawyer. I don't let it get to my head that I'm more senior to people that have practiced here for maybe 5 years. I'm not the senior. For the Canadian legal system, I'm third year. And so that humility, I don't know if I had to learn it, but I had to just an understanding that I can't go around acting as if I know it all when I don't.
Hmm.
You know, the law is such a country specific profession
Hmm.
that unlike engineering, where an engine in India is the same as an engine in Brazil, is the same as an engine in Canada. The medical profession is the same worldwide, but the legal profession is one that is country specific.
Hmm.
Regardless of the common law foundation that we have, every country would have their own specific legal system, and the lawyers in that legal system are professionals, specialists in their legal system.
Hmm.
So, for the Canadian legal system, I'm a third year lawyer. I'm not a 20-year lawyer.
Wow.
Okay, so I had to remind myself that on a daily basis And the sooner we all realize that, the easier it is for us to be humble about the situation, to be humble about learning. Because when we are, if we are arrogant about our years of experience, you don't get to learn. And so I had to put my head down, learn like everybody else was learning during articles as a junior associate. And still I am learning, and that just makes me a better professional, makes me a better person, you know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
think we could probably all take the approach that learning is a lifelong process and not a one-time thing. But
yeah.
for a third-year lawyer, I do think you have a lot of unique and different experiences that most third-year lawyers do not have. But I appreciate that perspective. And I guess getting to the $1 million question. So obviously, for those that don't know, the Law Society is governed by a 24-member board known as the Benchers, and they are responsible for the governance of the Law Society of Alberta and for adjudicating regulatory matters that come before it. So it's a very influential group. So the $1 million question: what inspired you to run as a bencher in our most recent election?
Okay, so I belong to a law society task force
Okay.
called the Bencher Election Task Force. And the part of the remit of the task force is to increase the number of candidates that run for the Bencher election, to increase the number of lawyers voting. The last two elections before this year's election, there's been about a 39% voter turnout. And this year, there was about 45 or 46% voter turnout. So
Wow.
it's increased greatly. So part of what we recommended at the task force level was because most of the lawyers at the bencher table, I think the most junior lawyer back then was about 10 years at the bar.
Hmm.
And from 10 years up to 40, 43 years at the bar or something, there were no junior lawyers or early career lawyers, as we like to call that. So there were some recommendations about having specific slots at the table for either early career lawyers or internationally trained lawyers or indigenous lawyers to bring different perspectives to the bencher table.
Mm-hmm.
So at the task force, there was a majority decision to present the early career lawyer option to the benches in February. And at the February meeting of the benches, I was there. Even I got to make a pitch for that. But it wasn't it was voted down that
Mm.
so for there to be a slot for an early career lawyer. Some other provinces have that option, so that at every election there's someone that is voted as an early career lawyer. So that was it was voted down, and it was really disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a lawyer came to me and said, "Why don't you run?" I said, "Come on, number one, this is just my third year as a lawyer. Number two, how would I go against a lot of more experienced lawyers who have the name recognition, who are QCs and stuff like that? How can I go against them? It's a huge mountain to climb. And some people have run before who are black and they never even got it, who are internationally trained. They never even got it.
Mm-hmm.
And I left it there. But that seed was sown. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because if there was a slot, definitely I would have run. Because having worked in the task force, I saw the way the Law Society works, and it was exciting. It's pro bono, but you know the your ideas and your whatever decision you take affects lawyers in the province.
Mm-hmm.
So this was in February. The seed was sown. It grew roots, started germinating, and then I started talking to a few people. And anyone I speak to, I'm like, actually, you would make a good bencher. You know what? Now that you say it, I think you would make a good bencher, Kene. People kept telling me this. I, Erin, I kid you not, I didn't meet one person that said, no, don't even think about it. Like,
Wow.
what are these other people seeing that I'm not seeing? You know,
Jess, you
Anyway,
know, you're awesome. You're just being
you
very
know.
humble.
So I kept going, and we're still having the task force meetings and everything. We and obviously with the task force meetings, I kept seeing things that I enjoyed about the Law Society governance.
Hmm.
So when I would say the rates dropped and the portal opened for candidates to express an interest, I got one last phone call, and this person said, "I think you should run. I've watched you over time, and this is someone I respect a lot.
Hmm.
I've watched you over time, and I think you would make a great addition to
Mm.
the Law Society venture table." I said,
Hmm.
"You know what? That's it." That afternoon, I put in my application. Okay.
Wow. So you
Yeah.
obviously had people in your network who were encouraging you and supporting you and pushing you to do this. And although it seems like you never shy away from a challenge, and this was definitely a challenge, it seems like it's very encouraging to hear that other lawyers were really encouraging you to put your name forward.
Yeah, and so whether it's part of networking or part
Mm-hmm.
of doing a good job, like I've always I
Mm-hmm.
keep on saying, um, people encouraged me to run because they had confidence in me.
Mm-hmm.
If they felt I was a jerk, I was gonna go there and mess everything up, nobody would encourage me to run, you know. So people that I had worked with, people that had seen my demeanor, or even those I hadn't worked with but had heard about me, said, you know what, maybe you should do this. What's there to lose? Like Michael Jordan said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
just take a shot. You never know where that would get you. What's the worst that will happen? You're not one of them, but at least you tried. Okay, so I started to put my name forward. And once I put my name forward, Erin, it even got so the support I received was even more massive than the support I thought I had from my network.
Wow.
you know People were coming out of the woodwork, like supporting me and encouraging me, people that maybe I had only the slightest of interactions with. you
Mm-hmm.
know um, I, I, I belong to the Global Lawyers of Canada, where we encourage internationally trained lawyers. Like, people from there were encouraging me, and a few of the internationally trained lawyers that I had mentored, I had spoken to, just because I was encouraging people, were encouraging me as well. Some of them had become lawyers. They're like, run, I need to vote this election and I'll vote for you, just for that reason. So I tell
Wow.
people as well, some of the good I did back then came back and paid me back now. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, all the time I mentored people, all the time I I volunteered, all the time I did pro bono at the courthouse. I wasn't doing it because I was hoping to run. I just did it because
Mm-hmm.
I like to volunteer. Okay, and some of that's there to pay back, where people felt, you would do good because you are not in this for fame. You're not in this to be a bencher. You're just in this because you want good governance for the law society, which a lot of lawyers want. You know, and
Yeah.
I'm so blessed that happened.
And obviously, this has been 2020 has been a crazy, crazy year. But one of the things that has really come out of it it has really highlighted the need for increased diversity and inclusion in not only the legal profession, but in every business across Canada and North America. It's really become such a huge topic, especially in our world in recruiting. I wonder how much of the need to have more diverse perspectives on the bench of the Law Society do you think was that a factor in people supporting you and wanting to see that more diverse representation?
Well, that was the factor.
That was the factor.
So yeah, so the February meeting, like I already said, was about adding an early career lawyer slot.
Mm-hmm.
That was the part of diversity we
Mm-hmm.
were asking for. And when it was voted down. Said, well, we might need to fight for this.
Mm.
Okay. There's a guy, Frederick Douglass, I think, said something like, you have to take some things. You don't get it. You don't. It's not given to you. You need to take it. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
when diversity, it was said then that you won't get the diversity that you're asking for. Then you just need to, one way or the other, grab it
Mm.
with the two hands, with your two hands. So yes, with the Black Lives Matter and all the diversity and inclusion topics that were happening throughout the year. I mean, this meeting was in February, so even
Right.
before, yeah, before they started worldwide. This meeting was in February. So, and it's just me. It's
Yeah.
just me. I didn't need George Floyd's death to ginger me. Maybe with that, a lot of the my networks started to support my thinking. But I started
Mm-hmm.
thinking about this when I got talking to somebody in February.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the people I was talking to now started to support me more with everything that happened in the world. But for me, that diversity and inclusion issue was there from February. And
Yeah.
if it wasn't going to be given, well, we had to fight for it one way or the other. You
Mm-hmm.
know. So
And you won the election without being in any particular slot. You were up against very senior lawyers
it
with
was
fancy
against the others.
titles and fancy networks, and the power of your network and your story won against many of these individuals. So that's, yeah, kind of an amazing story that if you have a dream and you think you can do it, perseverance will see you through that.
Yeah, and they say what's that they say that success is in 99%, there is inspiration and perspiration, one or the other. So
Yeah.
one is inspiration and the other is perspiration. Like you have to be inspired, but then you have to work hard
Yeah.
to make that inspiration come to pass. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so
Yeah.
and even though I'm a legal counsel, I'm internationally trained, I'm an LA career lawyer, I check all these boxes, but I would not be um, arrogant enough to say that was the demographic that voted for me. I had QCs voting for me. I had very senior lawyers. When I contact them, they email me back and say, "Yes, I'm voting for you. I like your message."
Mm-hmm.
So it's representing everyone, not just
Yeah.
these demographics. That I because I wouldn't go there and ignore the QC that voted for me and say, "Oh, you already have people." You know,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be that type of person that anyone tells me, "Look, this is what we like to change at the Law Society," and I'll bring it to the bench table.
Mm-hmm.
The bench table should not be a kind of cult where you don't know anybody there, or you can't speak to anybody there, or there are these untouchables. You
Yeah.
reached out to me and we're doing this call. You know,
Yeah.
I cannot make myself unavailable because I'm at the bench table. The people that voted me have to I have to be accessible to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how we can bring good governance, how we can bring future governance to the venture table.
Yeah. And I'm curious, are there any big ticket issues on your mind that you're going to be passionately advocating for change within the Law Society of Alberta, or have you formulated those sort of things yet? I'm curious.
Well, um, as benchers, whatever you whatever you formulate would be, you can't campaign on issues. We're not
Mm,
politicians,
fair enough.
because whatever we're doing is for the good of the law society.
Yeah.
So if, like in February, it was decided that there should be no early career lawyer slots, that's deemed to be for the good of the law society because the majority voted against that. So um, it's not, we're not allowed to campaign on issues
Right.
or say we're going to do anything, because if that doesn't happen, then it becomes like a personal
Mm-hmm.
issue. Whatever issue it is will be a law society issue. If
Yeah.
it's If it's implemented, then it becomes my issue. If it's not implemented, then it wasn't my issue. But but I have a lot of ideas I intend to bring to the table,
Mhm.
and part of the reason for running is because I don't know any other venture that would think the way I think or would have the experiences that I have had, whether as
Mhm.
internationally trained or as an early career lawyer even. When the more experienced you are, the more removed you are from your early career days,
Mhm.
some things would not necessarily, they'll be in your blind spot.
Yeah.
But for me, those things are right there in front of me. I can see them, and hopefully, when I bring those issues to the venture table, I will be allowed to explain them and to talk about them because I experience them and I see them on a day-to-day basis, unlike
Mhm.
a lot of the other ventures.
Yeah, it's so unique. You bring perspectives of, as you say, an early career lawyer, which I take with a slight grain of salt, given your previous career in Nigeria. But I take your point, early career in the Canadian legal system, as well as being, the first Black lawyer from Nigeria, having gone through the immigration system. So many different facets of different perspectives that you bring to the table. In terms of internationally trained lawyers, because I personally help mentor and advise through my line of recruiting work lots of internationally trained lawyers who come to Calgary or other parts of Alberta and are trying to break into the legal profession. Do you think there's changes that need to happen within the Law Society to make it easier for them to transition, or do you think the system works as it is, or do you think the change needs to happen among law firms? Like, what's your stance on that situation?
System still has to change.
Yeah.
It's not enough,
Hmm.
and I'll try to be as modest as possible and non-critical as possible. Um, it has to change. Most, if not, I'll say most of the benchers or of the people at the Law Society came through this system.
Hmm.
So you don't know what you don't know. If you did not experience what I experienced as an internationally trained lawyer getting requalified, you wouldn't know unless a mentee tells you about it.
Hmm.
Then it's really third-hand information. The best way to experience something is to get into it, to get involved in it. I mean, a lawyer cannot get involved in being internationally trained. I'm involved in it. I've rolled in the mud. I've rolled in the hay in this, being internationally trained and being an immigrant, and you know, just like saying understanding the plight of early career female lawyers. The
Hmm.
fact that they leave the profession early in their career, even though there are more female law students, but then within the first 5 years, there are now more male lawyer, male associates. I wouldn't say I understand. It's a gender specific thing. So it would be too arrogant of me to say, oh, I understand why women are leaving the profession. I wouldn't even try that. So someone tried to understand what internationally trained lawyers face without being that demographic. Um, you might be you won't totally get it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So and that was part of my pitch in February when I was talking to the benchers. Like, you need someone in that demographic for you to understand the struggle, the hustle, the pain. You know, see, a lot has to change at the Law Society to for if it's for early career lawyers, if it's for internationally trained lawyers. But if it remains as it is, then it's the same thing that has been going on for 113 years. The
Hmm.
world has changed. I love this quote from a judge I studied a lot when I was in university, Lord Denning of England.
Lord
There was a
Denning is
case.
very famous indeed.
Yeah, I belonged to the Lord Denning chambers when I was in university.
Cool.
And there was something he said. I think the case was Parker and Parker, if I remember
Mm.
right.
Yep.
And the lawyer said, oh, there was an issue and said, we've never done this before. And Lord Dennis said, as eloquently as he always sounds, what's the argument on the other side? That we've not done this before, that if we don't do what has not been done before, the whole world will move forward and the legal profession would stand still, would remain static. We cannot just keep doing what we've been doing, thinking, oh, it's worked in the past, it will continue working. No, the world has changed. A lot of things that, I mean, even as a January, the world has changed in November that we are now. Talk less
Mm-hmm.
of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Technology has changed. People don't carry papers around as much back in the day. Remember those big briefcases that lawyers carry? Some
Yep.
still carry it just as part of it's a legal thing, but we need to.
Yep.
So things have changed, and the sooner we start to change with the times, the better it is for the legal profession, the better it is for lawyers, because there are alternative legal service providers that are knocking on the door trying to do what we do. And we can't just keep still and say, no, you can't do it. One day they're going to break down that door, and we need to be ready
Mm-hmm.
to change with the times. So legal innovation is a big thing for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Technology changes is a big thing. Obviously, um, the all the diversity issues and equity issues are big things for me. So
Mm-hmm.
watch this space.
Yes, well, we will be watching very closely. I don't think I have ever been so excited to see what the benchers do of the Law Society of Alberta since I became a lawyer myself. But Kenny, it has been such a pleasure for you to tell us a little bit more about your story and break down how you became the first Black lawyer as a bencher on the Law Society of Alberta after 113 years. And I can just say it's a testament to your character and your perseverance that you're at this point as 3 years at the Alberta bar, and I can only imagine what you will achieve in the years to come. So
Thank
thank
you.
you again.
Thank you, Erin. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And I know you help a lot of internationally trained lawyers. You help a lot of lawyers based on the work you do. And thanks for that. And thanks for always being having a listening ear. Because sometimes we internationally trained lawyers don't have people that listen to us, or when they listen with preconceived notions. But
Mhm.
you listen with understanding, which is not
Mm.
very common. Even though you've not been in our shoes, but you listen with a lot of understanding and compassion, which is what a lot of internationally trained lawyers need.
Oh, well,
So
thank
thank
you,
you.
Ken. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
Awesome.